I had a multi-pronged argument about the Russia-Ukraine war in the comment sections of YouTube videos. Just one sentence, one of the important lessons from this war is population and industrial output matters. That's the comment that ended up garnering 34 replies from over 10 different people ready to argue about this. If you have followed this war, you know the comment sections are completely debauched, and in this video, they are entertainment. I am more experienced than those commenters. For 3 years since the full-scale invasion, I have followed the war in Ukraine doing small, independent research and can talk about the different aspects of the war, like the Pokrovsk front, as well as the larger trends in this conflict. In this video, it will be the argument I participate in, paraphrased for the anonymity of the parties involved and for more concise points. And as a bonus, I will also analyze the argument and show how you can debate yourself regardless of which country you are arguing on. Now, for an important message. I'm not trying to offend people. It is true that most comment sections are full of confirmation bias. The Ukraine war is so polarized that once arguers from either side think you're on theirs, your comment section will drive the other half away. I don't want this. I have viewed over 130 sources that are suggesting to support Ukraine, Russia, or in between. I have seen the arguments from both sides, more than you know. In my comment sections, please treat people with disagreeing positions as a different perspective. Thank you. Round 1. Introducing the arguees. We will call the original poster Faisal, and his main critic Tony, who was the first to reply, saying the important lesson is what 3 years yielded against a smaller country with no navy. This was at the start of the video's lifespan, so counter-arguments flooded in. A one-time commenter replied, Tony, the lesson is what has been yielded from the USA spending trillions and 20 years in Afghanistan. What has been yielded from 20 years in Vietnam. The lesson is grow a brain. And here's where I came in. I replied to Tony saying, hey, Pokrovsk is currently being captured. Then Faisal made his first and last reply, saying to not forget how Ukraine has had foreign aid, and his argument applies to more than just Ukraine. But at this point, the cat was out of the bag and we were none the wiser. Another one-time commenter replied, Tony, ask the European countries that ruined their economies when they placed sanctions on Russia to destroy their economy, giving away military equipment they can't replace. Russia wanted NATO out of Ukraine, now Russia will get NATO out of Europe in a decade and some. Then some guy who was replying to the original post as opposed to Tony said, so the Southerners didn't know.
Oh, way down south in the land of traitors, rattlesnakes and alligators right away.
Yeah, I'm from the United States, the Confederacy, rattlesnakes and alligators. So the round 1 analysis is Tony went against the original poster and got dissent from early commenters. Faisal responded perfectly, telling Tony that he might have misinterpreted his argument. Tony is the most experienced person I argued with in this reply section, and he got hit with quite a lot. So first of all, a one-time commenter compared the USA's efforts in Afghanistan and Vietnam. So they're trying to introduce a third party, someone that they might actually listen to, the United States, and showing that even this great military, which is my own country, by the way, well, yeah, Afghanistan was useless. I mean, maybe not useless, but so much money spent on it. And Vietnam was death and destruction. And Vietnam, half of Vietnam beat the United States and then beat its other half. So like, oh no, the one-time commenter isn't saying that Russia is experiencing something like this. They're saying, is Russia really doing that bad compared to the historical precedent of superpowers going to war? And then we look at my own first comment. So I made a one-sentence, intentionally short comment. Something that I've learned is that most reply debates will only be you reply to them, they reply back, and then the argument dies out. It doesn't even become an argument. And really, I just can't and don't want to put effort into something like that for, reasons. The aim is to really test the waters and to see if this guy has potatoes in the bag or if he doesn't have any potatoes at all. However, this short comment was kind of provocative, and I think, this is my point of view. I want to treat my opponents with behavior that looks forward to continuing argument. I am generally interested in making points and trying to maybe learn some things about the Ukraine war from these. With that said, I think the person who called Tony an idiot made a mistake. So, if I had to draw some advice from my years of experience, I'd say, what do you plan to get out of the arguments? You need to actually influence the people and make them in a mood to receive it, and if you insult them, it's not gonna work. And the last comment for round one, the guy was saying that Europe is is destroying their own economies. So the problem with this is that it is only pro-Russians saying this stuff. I do not agree or disagree with this, but what I'm saying is that the backstory for this argument is really shaky and not actually reliable. So, like, one thing I do know, the world population, it is starting to stagnate, and so are Europe's economies. A lot of people just don't like the current working environments at all anymore. A lot of people are getting tired, and you could say, like, economies are going in the dumpster for just about every country. And the Ukraine war doesn't help with that. Not for Russia, not for Europe. Now, this guy is clearly implying when he says Russia is gonna kick out NATO that, like, Russia is getting hurt less from this. And I don't think I can really back that up. It's like sanctions definitely did not hurt Russia as much as was expected. But about Europe, like, not recovering from this, I'm not sure about that. It's like Europe made a miscalculation. Russia thought Ukraine wouldn't fight, and that was an error that led to a shortfall. Then Europe after that thought, if we send some weapons to Ukraine for free, Russia will collapse in months. And now that those weapons are gone and Russia's pushed forward, not collapsing, Europe is gonna hurt from that. Now, I want you to be an economic analyst. I want you to analyze which of those two errors hurt more. It's probably going to take you a little while, isn't it? Would be a really long comment if you actually wanted to do that, right? This comment right here is not that long. They never said how Europe's economies are being ruined, and they're relying on a short comment to push their ideas, but this comment is a real big reach. It's trying to argue with an argument that is rejected by the opposing side and has really bad foundations. Round 2, me versus the third arguer we would call Cool AC. Tony was not the first person to reply to me. It was actually this guy. So he replied to my comment saying, "Cool achievement. hey, consider how long it's taking. That's why we're calling him Cool AC, is because he says that. So he probably did the same thing I did, an intentionally short comment, kind of provocative. And remember, I'm paraphrasing these things. He was a bit more sarcastic than this is able to provide. So I don't think he was counting on me to reply. But replies I gave him. So I don't know if I've said this, but this argument took place 1 month ago, and I am pretty aware of what's happening on the battlefield. You saw a military summary map at the start of this video. I look at tons of those. And at the time, Russia had entered Pokrovsk the day before my comment. And it's in the fighting zone. Half the maps I watched say Southern Pokrovsk was captured, and they're breaking the last line of defense. Now, what I mean when they're breaking the last line of defense, you'd have to look at maps of fortifications. And when Russia was initially approaching Pokrovsk, fortifications to the northwest of it were not nearly as built, and Russia could have actually broken through the whole 2014 defense line if they went through Pokrovsk. So I'm trying to answer his question, how long is it taking? And I'm saying literally they entered Pokrovsk yesterday. And Cool AC replied, your comment does not relate to what I said. So he completely dismissed my comment. I think it made sense to me, but he was not able to understand it in a short manner. And this is not good for me because I can't get any points across. So he didn't understand my intentions. My comment was meant to be related. He just didn't see that. And so I need to elaborate on what I mean while countering his rebuttal. So first of all, him saying my comment didn't relate to what he said, he put it in a way that was a little bit rude. And so I need to pin him on this type of behavior. I might not be able to get through to him if I let this sort of stuff slide. So I called it out. That's a little rude. Although I don't mind because a single reply is better than 99% of people. So I'm trying to show that I appreciate his replies. And I'm trying to have a civil argument, not to insult him. I don't think I would be able to keep the argument going if I didn't do this. Your comment does not understand the battlefield situation. Pokrovsk is falling today. What I was trying to do was to catch him on this technicality, maybe try to get him to understand that he misunderstood something. Russia entered Pokrovsk only 1 month ago. The battle started 1 month ago. And technically, at the time, how long it was taken was only 1 day. What did you think? 18 months? There are other cities in between Pokrovsk, like Selidova. This is the Avdiivka front, the predecessor to the Pokrovsk front, in May 16th, 2024. And you can see that there are so many towns right here. At this time, zoomed down to this scale, Pokrovsk was completely untouched. So was Selidova even. I think the biggest mistake, if you look back at my reply, now I meant between Pokrovsk and Avdiivka, but if you look at my comment with no context, you'd say, between Pokrovsk and what? Okay, but the point of my comment is that you guys are not seeing the big picture. It took 18 months to capture Pokrovsk. Oh, I'm sorry. The cities in between Pokrovsk and Avdiivka just don't fucking exist. It's only Kurakova. Since the fall of Avdiivka, Russia has had one objective. That's not true. Sorry, I got heated there. So you understand what my comment means now, but only because I explained 2 minutes from my point of view. Considering that someone coming from the outside may not understand what my comment is, it has some flaws and my opponent acts on those. Cool AC replied back saying, exactly, they fought in Parkcroft for a year. It was their main focus. Their pace is not impressive compared to the effort put in, especially to their next door neighbor. Now, I did have one success here. He did not come back with another insult. And that is probably the best thing that I could have hoped for. The argument is actual argument now. We're gonna take it seriously, and that is. And so the next reply that I made, I'm actually proud of myself. I'm trying to take it seriously now. And I analyzed all the mistakes I made, so I went and I elaborated on what I meant. But also, I was ready to press questions on him. I was ready to make the good comments, and let me just read it out to you. Not impressive by what measure? Do you think a country of your choice could do better with the same amount of troops? Why do you think the pace of advance is so slow? This is the first 25% of my comment. Now, I want to get this out of the way. At this point, you see that I'm kind of arguing like Russia is winning. Okay, but I never explicitly said this. I am not pro-Russian because I don't know what it means to be pro-Russian. Do I not want the war to end? I want the Ukraine war to end. I think it would have been better off for Russia had they not suffered hundreds of thousands of casualties in Ukraine. And while I want the war to end, I understand that this is incredibly optimistic, and I am looking at it from what might actually happen. And what might actually happen is that Russia is winning in the battlefield, but there are no winners of war. Also, by some miracle, if you've watched my other videos, I've said this stuff before, but no one watches my videos, so hear it again. So back to my comment. I said, why do you think the pace of advance is so slow? So I continue. Once you have that answer, they have not been fighting for Parkcroft for a year. They advanced toward it. When they captured Ocheretine, were they fighting for Pokrovsk? It's like saying Russia is already fighting for Novopavlivka, Dnipro Oblast, when they are actually going on a few side missions like capturing the rest of southern Donetsk. No, they'll reach Kharkov by 2030. Yo! You were sarcastic about Russia's achievements earlier, but they have already achieved a lot and now they are taking the city. Let me say again that Russia entered Pokrovsk yesterday. So guys, have I been improving in the argument since it began? This is my entire comment and it is so much to unpack. When I say those other guys' comments are short, I'm looking at this right here. So this thing is basically written like an essay. So it starts off not with rebuttals, but with just questions. Not impressive by what measure? Do you think another country could do better? Why do you think the pace of advance is so slow? So listen up. Here is the foundation for how you can debate yourself in the Russia-Ukraine war. So people from the opposing sides, they're just not going to admit that they're wrong, and they're not going to take your argument seriously. And so you're not going to be able to convince someone with just arguments alone. And now I want to do this thing where I have to make my opponent think. I have to make my opponent answer some questions, and I have to make it tough to answer. Now, there's another reason you want to ask questions. You might not know what your opponent means. I know that my opponent misinterpreted some of the stuff that I said. And so this argument focuses way more on just attacking what my opponent said. It asks a bunch of questions to start off with. And actually, some of these questions, they are like essay theses because I will answer them in the same comment. And I kind of mold the battlefield. I say, once you have that answer. So I am putting pressure on him to answer my questions. And then I go back to elaborate on my previous mistakes while also replying to him right now. Across for a year, they advanced toward it. And every sentence, it's accomplishing multiple objectives. When they captured Ocheretine, were they fighting for Pokrovsk? And that's a good question, I think. It's like saying they're already attacking Novopavlivka when they captured the southern Donetsk, the Horn of Donetsk, but Novopavlivka, they haven't entered it. And this comment is actually starting to build my credibility, going down to you were sarcastic about Russia's achievements earlier, but they've already achieved a lot and now they're taking the city. I am signaling to my opponent that, I hear the arguments while I'm offering my own. And just to drive the point home, I add that Russia had entered Pokrovsk yesterday. So my tip is you need to know what you're going to argue about before you do. And I have argued many times. I do not expect you to finish this video and then instantly be a master. You need to consume lots of info about this war. And then once you've done that, you need to argue, and you're probably going to need to fail, and then you're going to need to improve, and you're going to need to learn more about the Ukraine war. So my reply to Cool AC was a master comment. How did he respond to it? By what measure have they achieved a lot? Am I a joke to you? The first sentence of my comment was not impressive by what measure, and his comment was just a lot by what measure. He reused my argument to just have the points, and then for someone to spend a fraction of the time making a comment, it's deafening. But here's the thing, while his comment may sound funny, it didn't really do anything at all. I had 4 questions, some arguments and more questions, and I was elaborating on my argument, and he answers none of them and just asked 1. He is asking for more arguments, and while responding to an essay with a single sentence may be funny, it is not addressing the pressing matters and lets your opponent gain the initiative. Okay, I said, I see, you are using the same questions I am. You want to pick on the words achieved a lot? In this case, I'm looking at measures. I'm looking at the fact Russia has captured multiple cities since this day last year, breaking through Ocheretine. They advanced north, south, and west. Pokrovsk was north, and they moved toward it. At the same time, Russia captured Volodar, and multiple events came together to create a... You know what I said? I am wasting my time. Look, do you think it's going bad on the battlefield for Russia? Don't just say what they have not achieved in 3 years. And Cool AC did not reply to that. Thanks for listening, and keep an open mind. I will be open to debates in this comment section. Just one condition. At the top of your comment, say it's a debate and give some kind of format you will argue with.